have such sights to show you. We're Poppin the Scary horror podcast here. I'm your host Coale, and with me as always I have my good friend and co-host Aaron. yeah.
I didn't know. I forgot I was here.
Well, you are here
Yeah.
right now in the middle of summer.
Jump scare. Right in the middle of the summer heat. Boy, howdy am I tired of 100-degree weather.
Me too, dude. Me too. Makes me want to die.
Yeah, feel like I could die at any moment. Is that what they did last summer? They just global warmed the person to death or something? I don't know anything about this movie besides it's about, like, somebody knows what you did, and he's calling them on the phone or whatever, and they're like, I know what you did last summer. And I only know that from fucking commercials on, like, ABC Family or something when I was a kid, and they were going to show this movie, but I never watched the movie.
Yeah, you pretty much just hit a lot of the bullet points I was going to hit there. Yeah, because, like, I have actually never seen I Know What You Did Last Summer. Mm-hmm. I knew about how I know what you did last summer there, but it was, like, in name only. Like, it's just one of those, like, horror titles, and especially, you know, it came out in the later 90s. It was actually 1 year after Scream release, so you could see why it's kind of following the footsteps since Scream was a huge smash hit of bringing back the horror genre there, because a lot of people talk about how Scream kind of revitalized the horror genre there with its new tropes and everything, and so this was one of the films to immediately follow suit there. But I know nothing about it except I've seen it in loads of parodies that people have done, whether it's like, you know, Scary Movie or online stuff. Like, you even knew the title, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and you don't. Besides from that, I don't know too much about it. I am very curious. I am ready for something kind of more familiar territory for me of just like slasher genre sort of thing. And I want to know what they did.
What did these rascals do last summer?
Well, we're about to find out whenever we get back with y'all after we watch I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I just hope they had fun.
Probably it was the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I know you. You know you. And I know you know that I know you.
And we are back from watching I Know What You Did Last Summer. And Aaron...
researched. We researched what you have done last summer. And we are so disappointed with you.
Yeah, we figured out what they did last summer. And needless to say... kids, am I right?
Those darn kids will just never learn.
Yeah, but as the movie goes, Aaron, thoughts, comments, critiques?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely had a Scream vibe. Definitely had that vibe, you know, not only the 90s, but like the film style and like the group of friends, and like, is one of these people in the group killing? Is it somebody else? What's going on in here? Kind of activity. So it was an enjoyable, suspenseful film for me.
Yeah. I mean, I would say overall it just hit the fine marks, you know, just like, yep, it's fine. Obviously, there's a lot. Well, maybe. There's some points we could definitely talk about whenever it comes to the survivors, the killer itself, and the mystery behind what exactly he knows they did last summer.
Exactly.
But, with that being said, let's dive into the plot, boys and girls. So, I Know What You Did Last Summer is about a group of teenagers during a 4th of July celebration. Whenever they are heading back, they accidentally hit someone and find out that they're dead. Spoilers, I know, crazy, right?
Dead people.
And basically being a big conundrum about what to do since they're the ones that hit the person, they decide, let's hide the body and never talk about it again. And so whenever they do that, the next following summer, one of the characters gets a letter in the mail that states specifically, I know what you did last summer. And from there, it is a mystery, thriller, horror, slasher mix for the entirety of the film. I feel like whenever it comes to plot threads, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, for sure. It is definitely an interesting premise to set up a familiar plot of, like, horror movie, people dying, who done it, kind of scenario. But definitely a unique spin on how to jumpstart that, where the survivors themselves have done a murder. Oopsie.
Yeah, I like the premise. More so than I do the actual resolution of how to get to the end, because I won't go into it further, but I was not exactly I didn't feel that same sort of satisfaction that a lot of good, like, mystery horror films have.
True.
Like, you get an answer, but by the end you're just like, okay. Yeah, you're pretty much just like, all right. And so I think that's kind of the thing, is like they're trying to solve it there, and pieces are definitely falling into place piece by piece. I just feel like it's just kind of there's not a lot of, like, clues that are given out and lots of digging. It's just like, oh, okay, this thing happened, let's go over here. So I guess while watching it, it was interesting. Another interesting thing, despite this really being deemed as a slasher, not a lot of slashing.
True. The kills themselves did not always involve a slasherino. The killer's weapon of choice was definitely not a slashing weapon. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the kills also kind of happen more or less off screen, or like, oh, there's a flash and then a thing. Yeah.
One of the other things I was definitely surprised by was surprisingly how, for the most part, it was light on the gore, it felt like.
Yeah, there wasn't anything like super excessive. I think they still got creative with a lot of the kills themselves, but they all kind of, I don't know, revolved around the same theme, and there wasn't a lot of, intense gore or guts flying out or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely interesting note there. That was just one of the other initial tidbits that I was very surprised by. And
seems a little bit like a teeny bopper movie for the 90s, so they probably kept it PG-13.
Yes, I would very much believe that there. Speaking of which, there were quite a few names that were kind of noteworthy for the cast here. One of which is Jennifer Love Hewitt, who plays the lead gal, Julie James. And I thought overall she did perfectly just fine, just kind of being the very, very moralistic one of the survivors there, because she wants to do what's right and everything, and she's the one kind of taking this secret the hardest out of the entire group.
Yeah, it's definitely affecting her the most. She's comes back emotional, and the journey of, like, trying to find out who was this guy that we accidentally ran over and all that is powered by her.
Yeah, I will say, whenever it comes to the writing of the story, I feel like the characters aren't too terribly deep.
No.
Or too complex. Granted, like, I love Scream a ton there, so it's kind of hard, because I think you're right, Aaron, in fact there is a lot of comparison between Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer with the setup there, which I'm sure was pretty intentional there.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, especially coming out a year after Scream, but that's beside the point. But overall, I mean, I felt like Jennifer did a fine job as Julie there. Definitely screamed a lot during the film.
Her and the other girl both were, like, fighting for Scream Queen title, I guess.
Yes.
They were yelling. They be yelping.
Yeah, but I mean, there isn't too much to say, but she just does the film just fine there. The other Scream Queen, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who plays Helen Shivers.
Yeah.
She was the other one, and again, I felt like she's, I don't know, similar to Julie's character, except she's kind of more of the, like, I don't know. Kind of riding the fence a bit.
She's definitely got more of the, like, popular girl vibe. And
yes.
She, like, the very beginning of the movie is her winning, like, the fucking local crab queen award or whatever. I don't know.
yeah.
For prom or some shit. And, yeah, she's definitely more on the ditzy, bubbly stereotype girl.
Yeah. It is funny, though, because I would argue probably these two lead actresses are probably the most well-developed characters in the entire film.
No, absolutely.
Which is crazy to think about since they're not even that heavily developed, but you do get, like, tidbits like Julie, like, looks absolutely drained after a year. I thought they did a good job of, like, showing her character a year later, how drastically different she acts, looks, and feels, kind of just trying to keep this secret with her. And then, you learn about, like, Helen's aspirations didn't go quite as planned there, which that's just life. So I thought those were interesting moments that they chose to do. But like I said, it's kind of like picking out little things like, oh, that was nifty. Because overall, it's pretty... They're playing a role, like most horror films and everything. But the one person that I would say was pretty defined in the worst way possible was Barry Cox, played by Ryan Felipe, who is just an asshole.
Yeah.
That is his entire character arc. Is just
rich asshole. Yeah.
And violent also.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's also an emotional character, but he just resorts to anger every time. He's
yeah, and it was kind of hard to get attached to him there. I just couldn't ever take him seriously because, as you can imagine, he's the one that leads the front about having this whole let's keep this a secret thing.
Right.
But
because he's like, the cops will find out, we get a charge, and then my life is ruined. I can't spend all my money. So.
Yes. Then finally, for the fourth survivor that we have is Ray Bronson, played by Freddie Prinze Jr., which it is the actor who played Fred in the live-action films, which I didn't know this. I think this is correct because I heard this in an interview, but whenever they were shooting... This is a side bit. Whenever they were shooting the Scooby-Doo film, did you hear about that story where Matthew Lillard and him shared a trailer? And basically Matthew Lillard, every time he had to use the restroom, there's always like a turd in the toilet. And so he kept flushing and kept getting pissed off. And then finally he stormed out and he's like, someone's taking a dump in our trailer and not flushing. He's like, oh yeah, that's me. And if you just look at his face, he looks... The IMDb picture they have right here, he just looks like he took a dump in your trailer and didn't flush it.
He did. I thought you were saying Matthew Lillard was the one that was...
No. Matthew Lillard was getting shat on.
That's some fucking Scream level pranks to the cross franchise. Pooing in your stew right now.
No,
it's the other way around. That's okay.
Yeah. Freddie Prinze is the one taking a deuce.
It's really funny because every time I see his character, I just like his face. I just think of Fred, and it was a little easier to not think of Fred in this movie because he's so much younger and he has like brown hair and it's all spiked up and shit. But
yes.
All right, gang. Here's the plan. I'm gonna poop in your potty every day and not flush it down.
Yeah, they are the main leads here. But we do have the killer that does appear later, known only as the Fisherman, played by Muse Watson. And overall, like, I would say whenever it comes to the Fisherman being the killer, it's fine. I think that's the best way I could say it. It's not to the level of, like, Jason, where it's like, oh man, hockey mask looks so distinct and everything, but it's also not, like, super lame. It's just fine, I would say.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not that scared of it, although I agree it's a cool design, I guess, question mark. I feel the same way about this killer as I do about the Valentine's Day.
Oh, Harry Warden.
Yeah, Harry Warden. Yes. So yeah, the mining suit's like cool, but and iconic, I guess, like by definition. But like, is it?
Yes.
Is it that cool? Like, no.
Yeah, as much as I love My Bloody Valentine, and I do love Harry Warden as a slasher, you know, describing it is just like, again, the outfit. It's just a miner's outfit there, and this is just a fisherman's outfit there. Yeah. So I can't disagree with that there. I will say, whenever it comes to his choice of weapon, the hook, I believe they tried their best to make it as versatile as they could.
True.
However, a lot of it is just poking and bonking from what I've noticed.
I don't know why the fisherman's hook was such a like big thing. Why they were like, oh yeah, he's got to use a fisherman's hook and be a fisherman the entire time. It's like, why you could have used some other weapons.
Yeah, I think the only reason as to why they were so dead set on it is because they're telling like that classic scary story of the man with the hook for a hand, and they're like telling different versions of it. That's the only bit of logic I could find as to why he sticks to that weapon there. But fortunately and unfortunately, there's not a lot of kills there, so it's not like everything feels completely monotonous. It just, there's a little bit of monotonity. I would say.
Just in the killer's design and his weapon, but it's I do feel like they attempt to freshen it up just in the in the scenarios people are in when they die, or you know, there's a level of creativity there. It's just not in the weapon or the killer's design, really.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. And I don't know, like, whenever it comes to it, it's just serviceable, I think, is the best act. Normally in these slasher films, the survivors are the ones that you hope are serviceable, and then the slasher is the one that you're like, ooh,
but it was a little bit the opposite here.
Yes, I would definitely agree so there. And there are other characters that appear later on. You were very, very astute in pointing out Johnny Galecki, who plays Max. And if you had not told me anything else, I would have never realized he was from The Big Bang Theory.
That's Howard from The Big Bang Theory. I didn't even watch The Big Bang Theory, but their clips keep popping up on my reels, and I'm like, what are you doing?
You're
poor
soul.
Supposed to be dating Penny right now.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, overall, I felt like the cast was fairly lukewarm whenever it came to it. It's just like, yep, there they are. Yeah,
they're definitely the 90s equivalent of like a Friday the 13th cast of survivors. Or whatever. It's like they're a little bit more polished by design, but they're still kind of hollow.
Yes, and because that's the thing, like, if you compare it to like Friday the 13th, you have like these characters who are as shallow as a puddle.
Right.
Like, I love the franchise, shallow as a puddle, but they're defined in certain ways that you remember certain aspects about them.
Right, they're like caricatures.
Yes,
like,
but but this one is like more grounded and mundane, and you only remember them by certain like aspects about their characteristics there, whether it's being very moral, being like the popular girl, being the angry douchebag, and then just being a dude like, hey, I just got here, what's going on? But yeah, overall it was okay. Whenever it comes to the mystery, obviously keeping it spoiler free, how was the mystery whenever it comes to steps? We haven't watched too many mysteries on this podcast, so I'm very curious on how you thought the pacing, the clues, and everything was.
I'm no like mystery expert, I'll put it out there, but I actually thought they did it pretty well in the way that they like know how audiences are going to perceive it, because it's like they put up a couple characters that they're like, here's who you keep your eye on, but then they like kill one of them and you're like, so it wasn't that one, and then it's like, oh, but it could be, you know. And so they do these sorts of things where they definitely attempt to draw your attention one way or another. I do feel like the ending was the ultimate culmination of the mystery. Maybe fell a little bit flat compared to how they were like setting it up. But I stand back from the film we just watched a few feet and I go, okay, I get it. You know, like that was kind of cool. It was maybe not the coolest possible ending they could have done, but I was like, Yeah, sure. I don't know if I even 100% got part of the mystery, but we'll have to talk about that in spoilers. There is one element that kind of threw me off. But it's yeah, like I don't know, because I feel like there's a climax. I feel like the climax is pretty all right. You know, like I get that that's the climax of this mystery, but then there's a conclusion, and that's kind of where I draw more my beef.
Yeah,
so it's hard to separate those two out without talking spoilers, but the very, very end of the movie I feel different about than like the highest point of action. But
yeah, I think for me, it comes down to the killer's actions and why he does the certain stuff he does and when he decides to pull the trigger and everything. I think that's one of the things that I'm kind of uncertain about. I get it from a writer's perspective as to why it is the way it is, but at the same point, as a viewer, I'm just like, sort of.
Are you saying
like
you
that.
gotta suspend quite a bit of disbelief? Is that what you're talking about?
Not that.
Okay.
No, mostly just whenever it comes to the like, it's like the best way I could describe it. I try not to be this way because obviously I can suspend my disbelief, but whenever it comes to the like, well, if I was that person, I wouldn't do that, or I would do this. There's a couple of moments like that there, which again, I try not to be too harsh on for the most part there, because like I said, I think that's kind of the fun of it. However, even kind of like moving past it there, it still just ends up being like, yeah. I think one of the film's absolute strengths is just setting. Like I said, it's kind of like My Bloody Valentine. One of the biggest strengths there is the mine, like a lot of cool aspects about it. But I feel like it being a fisherman town, they only have like one moment that's like it feels unique to the setting there. They only have one kill. The rest you could place it anywhere else and it's whatever. I will say towards the end of the film they kind of revisit that idea again. But at the very least, it's like with My Bloody Valentine, you do get to spend a lot of the film in the mine, or at least in the original one.
Which is one of the strengths,
yes, for sure. It's funny now I'm just also drawing comparisons because that one's also a mystery, but that's true. That's neither.
Yeah, so done a mystery about the big killer legend in town.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to mention. I mean, obviously, it's kind of hard to talk about mysteries without spoiling everything entirely there.
Yeah.
I only kind of lightly spoiled the premise because I'm like, I figure a lot of people already know how it starts there. But, any other aspects you want to talk about before getting into spoilers?
No.
Okay. It's,
I didn't think.
It's pretty cut and dry whenever it comes to it. It's like, no, it's pretty straight by the numbers.
It's a pop culture ass movie. Don't expect anything else.
I will ask this question. Do you think this film should be as popular and noteworthy as it got in our culture?
That is a good question. This film to me has the cultural significant equivalent of something like The Monkees or something. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things that like we're all still aware of, but if you took them out of the timeline, would it really shake too much up? Probably not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Monkees are cool. We like the Monkees. I Know What You Did Last Summer, and that was cool. I like it. It's also very stapled to a specific time, and it's like, it's not like a must see, but it's like here's a little cultural moment. It's like, you ever see those Yoplait commercials with it's one of those things that's like, hey, that's a thing that's lodged into time and has cultural significance, but like how much, you probably shouldn't overstate it.
I think that is probably the best way to describe this film because, like, I guess for me, I might have set my expectations a little bit too high because, people kept talking about it like, oh, yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer, like, another big slasher of the 90s and everything. And I'm like going in like, okay, all right. And I just kind of went and I'm like, okay, I think I set my expectations a little bit too high, which might inadvertently hurt the score there. Again, maybe if it's like something that if I think about later on, it'll get better and be like, you know. Yeah, I think, though, comparing it to You'll Play Commercials, The Monkees,
Yeah.
right on the money there. I think I couldn't agree more with that sentiment of you could remove it, and I feel like it'd be fine, but at the same point, it's a nifty time capsule just to see kind of where the trajectory of horror was going, given that it was very, very popular.
Yeah.
But
it's not making the like top 100 list of like neat things about the 90s or whatever, but like top 1,000 maybe. I don't know. it's in there. Somebody thought of it and wrote it down on the list. It just didn't make top 100.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, let's go ahead and just talk about ratings. That was just, that was the only burning question I had to ask about it.
Good question.
But yeah, thank you.
Keep them coming.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't got much.
Wow.
Let's see what your rating is, boss.
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. My rating's gonna be pretty straightforward. It's not straightforward in a bad way, though. For me, it's like bubblegum pop, baby. It's like listening to old NSYNC records or something. It's a little hollow, but sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's all you want. But it's not gonna be put in my masterpiece chamber of justice or whatever. I'm not gonna put this in a trophy case. It was a decent movie. Grab some popcorn, watch a slasher flick with not a lot of blood, so you can have your tween kids in there or something. Age appropriate slasher. It was cool kids from the 90s with their bleached hair and their bleached assholes and whatever else they got going on. I don't know. There wasn't really any nudity or anything either. Just anyway. God, I mean, this is like a 6. It wasn't a below average experience for me. It was up there. I thought the mystery was pretty good. The ultimate culmination of the mystery, but wasn't super sad about it. And the kills were like kind of creative. All this I feel a little more than lukewarm about. You know what I mean? This was acceptable. This was a satisfying thing. I'm not gonna rant and rave about it, but yeah, why not? It was kind of cool.
Okay, yeah. Well, that is genuinely surprising there.
Oh, yeah?
I was expecting a little bit lower, because that's where I'm going.
Go for it.
For me, and like I said, I do preface this with, I wasn't expecting this to be the most groundbreaking horror film of all time and stuff, so my score could definitely be affected by it because I was kind of looking into it. But I was a little bit let down, and granted, I love me a good horror mystery there. I mean, My Bloody Valentines, both of them, and Scream are up there for being some of my faves and everything. But I think with this one, the biggest thing is like, with these mystery horror films, you're focusing on the characters there, and for the most part, whenever it came to being attached to these characters, I really wasn't. And there wasn't a lot of like kills or whatever to like keep me enticed and everything. Whenever it came to some of the like suspense and action scenes, they were a little bit goofy there, but also just kind of like by the numbers sort of thing there. And the climax of the film, I thought was a little undercooked a little bit. I felt like it just was like, it's supposed to be like a whoa, but it just like, once it got there, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
I found myself like just zoning out a little bit whenever it came to it, as they're like figuring out the pieces and doing everything, which is kind of bad during like a mystery there. And granted, it's not a very long movie. It's like a little over an hour and a half, so it's not even a situation where I'm like, oh, it's too long or whatever. It's just the setup of the mystery is good, and the premise of the film is good. It's just as you continue along, it starts to lose a little bit of steam, and by the point it gets to the finish line, you're just like, okay. But yeah, like I said, I also don't hate this film either. I'm not like, ugh, disgusting, whatever there. So, I mean, if I had to be honest with a rating, it's I don't know, a 4.5 for me. There's still some merit to it. I think you raised a good point. It's like baby's first slasher. I think it's like a good thing because even then, with there's not a lot of sex in the film either.
There's not, yeah.
It's just like the beach scene, but even then they don't really throw anything gratuitous whatsoever. So I do think that, there is merit to this film, even though I do rate it low. I mean, if I was bored, I could see myself turning it on and just being like, oh yeah, this part's cool, and then continue on. But I think it's because of the lack of connection to wanting to see the people figure out who this killer is, the killer not being that interesting. Pacing wise, it's fine or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it still is a neat time capsule of the 90s still, so it has value. I don't think it's like a stain or anything there. I just think it's very by the numbers sort of slasher.
Yeah, fair.
But still, like I said, I absolutely respect and understand Aaron's 6 as well there. Definitely, and then maybe like, because in all honesty, a lot of the fun I had with it is just pointing out the ridiculousness of some of the stuff and laughing at it. It could be a good romp with some fellas or gals watching that there.
I think it's a vibe.
Yes.
That's how I describe it. It's a vibe.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. I think whenever it comes to some of the characters' ways that they are, some characters are uncharacteristically mean, like over the top there, which maybe drives me out of it. And maybe it would be different if I knew that there was like a good kill coming up, but it's not always the case. I'm curious. I think I know what our favorite kill is in the film, though, or lead up to a kill there. So, but we'll have to discuss that in spoilers, which we're in right now. So if you don't want to get spoiled, you can vamos, close the web browser, close your app, because we're gonna rat-a-tat-tat with spoilers.
Yeah. Spoiler time.
Yes. How about we talk about your first spoiler you want to mention?
Man, I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but I just want to talk about the sister.
Oh my gosh.
She's a weird character.
Dude, she's just so overly antagonistic.
And that's one of the parts of the... the sister of the blonde. I was thinking of the sister of the dead guy that wasn't actually dead.
Whoa.
No, that sister's good to talk about too. Michelle Gellar's character, sister, Helen's sister?
Yes.
Whatever her name is. Yeah, she's literally like an evil stepmom stereotype.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. These are super two-dimensional characters. And she just like comes into her room sometimes to be like, hey, fart face, are you... working tomorrow because you have to? And she's like, no, I have to be the crab queen again for one last time. She's like, well, why don't you go sniff your own farts? And then leaves her in the runner.
Like, she is so overly antagonistic. Like, I'm just like, good lord. And not to mention, it's weird, like, seeing, like, clearly an adult being overly antagonistic.
Yeah, she's
there.
like the older sister of someone who's already an adult. So her name isn't like specified. Her age isn't specified, I don't think. But she's got to be like in her 20s, and she's managing some store that her sister's working at.
Yeah,
like that. She walks in. The first thing she says to her is like, when she's looking at her crown, was something about like, you washed up deadbeat. Just like, geez, you just coming in. Flying, like,
I think if I remember correctly, if we're able to nail down the age, it says she graduated high school in 88, I want to say.
Oh,
and then
like
it's 97, so she's like...
Oh, she's like a 30s, I guess?
Like 28 years old?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I guess it would be. Yeah, probably.
But it's just so weird to see her be so overly antagonistic towards her sister, who has done nothing. And so it's like moments like that draw me out, and I'm just like, holy crap.
I guess I sort of just accepted it all as like, these are like cookie cutter characters and just rolled with it.
Yeah, but... I think it's the best way to look at it. I was just taken aback, I guess, whenever like other characters are trying to be grounded in reality there. But yeah, let's talk about the sister, Anne Hinch, who plays Melissa Egan. Please tell me your thoughts about her.
Okay, again, this might not be the most makes sense for a podcast way to bring it up, but I'm just dying about, like, her sister, the sister of the dead guy, right? Who they think is the dead guy initially. They run out. What are their name? Helen and whatever, Julia or whatever, run out and to go talk to her because they need to find clues about this guy that died, so they know who's sending them death threats or whatever, who the fisherman be, and she's like meant to be this sort of quirky, lives by herself. Maybe she's the fisherman? Question mark, or like is working with them or something, and you find out later that the fisherman guy was actually the person that they hit in the first place, which I guess is the biggest spoiler. The person they hit with their car, he wasn't quite dead. He didn't quite drown, but he was out there because he killed some other guy that was this girl's brother, and then threw him in the docks, and that's the body that they found. And then he's coming back to get revenge on the kids or whatever. So I guess just what I didn't understand was it's like he's the father of the girl that was killed the summer before that summer that they killed. So the timeline gets all wonky, and I was just not paying attention enough to piece it all together or something. But so he killed the boyfriend because he blamed. You following me? You're trying to follow the same mystery that I'm trying to follow. He killed the boyfriend that initially that was the guy that they all thought was dying. I feel like I'm losing everybody in the audience right now because I don't know how to explain this. But the fisherman kills the boy that they thought they killed, and they're hanging out of this house. So like what? And then they kill this fisherman, and then the ultimate ending of the movie is like he's still alive again and pops out of the shower. So, but like, the sister just perplexed me the whole time because she gets this note that's like the same note that they got, but it's not a death threat. It just says like, I will never forget last summer. This guy's obsessed with the summer. I don't know.
And I think what we figured out is that the fisherman was the one who got hit instead of David Egan. However, he's dressed exactly the same way David Egan is dressed, which, I mean, I guess they did confirm that David Egan was also a fisherman. So maybe he was also dressed up as a fisherman whenever he killed the body and he dumped it. Then he's walking alongside the road because he just dumped it. Because they talk about how the body was found later somewhere else or whatever, like the body washed away. Because if you look at, I know you, Aaron, found footage and everything of the fisherman underwater there, and it looked a lot like David Egan's character there, but it looked a lot older. Even though like they specifically mentioned his face is covered in blood, we can't tell who it is. So if that's the case, whenever he says, make sure that the person on the side of the road is not dead, then I guess that was him. Either way, it's still very confusing. I feel like it's just one of those like ways they trick the audience into thinking, okay, you see this character at the beginning and you know he's by the cliffs. Therefore, you believe that they're the ones that got hit. Like two pieces lead up together. But instead, it's actually a trade out to where it's the fisherman who killed David Egan, and the fisherman was walking away after he killed them and got hit. That's at least what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and from what I can see online, they do say that David Egan was killed by Ben Willis when he like kicked him off the cliff. That you see him sitting at in the beginning.
Yes.
So it's got to be the fisherman that Ben Willis, the fisherman that they hit.
Well, holy cow! I'm glad we figured out that mystery.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely a more. Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one confused by the end.
Yes, I was confused as well because I didn't think about it until you brought it up. Right? It was like because I heard him like make sure if you kill someone, they're dead or whatever.
Right. And then I guess he's still alive and maybe actually handless this time because they only recover his hand at the big end. So then whenever it's like 1 year later and she's in the shower or whatever and some fisherman fellow breaks through the glass to set up for a sequel, it's like, yeah, this maybe he's still alive. You got to make sure that he's dead.
You know? It's goofy. Like, I feel like whenever it, like, because we could talk about the ending before diving into like other small parts, but with the ending of I Know What You Did Last Summer, basically Julie and Freddie Prinze Jr., I can't remember his character's name already, my brain's blanking. It's 1 year later, they're a happy couple and everything, and she's like having a shower or whatever, and then her friend's like, oh, you got a letter, and it's a fake out, even though it's like written very creepily,
very eerily similar to the other letters she received.
And then when as soon as she entered the shower again, and it is the steamiest bathroom I have ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, so steamy.
Yes, even Freddy's boiler room isn't that steamy.
Yeah.
Like, it is so steamy. I was like, oh yeah, they're going to do like the jump scare at the end where the killer is actually there, and of course, like, looking at the glass, it says like, I still know. What I was not expecting was for them to be so bold enough as to have the fisherman jump through the grass and Five Nights at Freddy jump scare to the screen.
It was like a 3D movie jazz jump scare, like right at the camera. Like, whoa.
And it's so weird because I hate it, but I also love it, if that makes sense.
Like, if we're trying to make fine art, then that was a poo-poo stupid thing to do. But, like, as like a funny little pop movie, like, yeah, that's great. It was on brand.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like I love and hate it at the same time. Like, I think it's stupid, but I also want the film to end any other way than that.
Yeah, I know, it's great.
But yeah, so, I mean, I guess that's it. And then he permanently probably has that hook for a hand now.
Yeah, now he is really the fisherman.
Ooh. And it's clever because it relays back to the story. It's like, well, I heard he was a mental patient. I had a hook for him. It's like, no, he used a hook as a weapon.
So it was both true.
Both true.
The legend continues.
Ooh. But yeah. So that was confusing, but I'm glad we ironed that out.
Yeah. But I know I kind of drug the sister into that conversation in the beginning, and I am no longer confused. She's just kind of like a red herring, I guess, because she's just creepy, and she's always grounding the corner with like a knife or something, and there's broken mirrors all over her property. If you didn't notice, that is weird. There's a weird broken mirror motif.
Yeah, that's weird.
But no, I guess she's not actually.
Yeah, she's just a red herring, just being a creepy person, hanging turkeys in the yard, cutting fish in the backyard.
Yeah, cutting them up.
Yeah, it's her being like, you can stop by whenever. I get lonely.
Yeah. Just her weird offhand comments. Mm-hmm. And she obviously knew about them to some degree, or was at least suspicious about them, because she knew like their car didn't really break down, and she's like, got it started, didn't you?
Yeah, they have a lot of like red herrings that they wiggle out. One of them being Freddie Prinze Jr., who surprisingly disappears for like the last third,
right? Yeah.
Until he arrives at the end of the last third.
I think it's to really make you think, oh, it is him or whatever, because then it has the moment where he's standing on the boat that says Billy Blue, and they're like, oh, she's like, hey, it's you, and then of course you immediately see her run into the arms of the actual killer.
Yeah, that was,
so it seemed like a little cheap of like, here's a guy that we haven't talked about like at all until this very moment.
Yeah, the red herrings were a little bit weak, even with I've already forgot his name. Big Bang Theory dude.
Howard.
Yes.
From the Big Bang Theory, whatever his real name is.
Exactly. Because they made him really a big red herring, with like him being specifically antagonized multiple times by Barry there. And I'm just like, well, he's a pretty big red herring, but I still think he's a red herring. And they kill his character off early in the film, and in all honesty, that was probably my favorite kill whenever it comes to feeling like traditional horror kill, because he's like boiling crabs in the back room, so you got like the thematic setting of like the sea and everything, and then there's like steam covering everything, and then the fisherman goes up, does an uppercut lunge, and then pulls him forward there, and he's like bleeding everywhere, and like whenever he gets dragged you see like a blood smear, but it is
cool.
It was cool, but if you think about context wise why he had to die,
no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's
he was
like
there, I guess.
Yeah, he should have known they had a dead body.
Yeah.
It's
now that you bring that up, that is really fucking stupid. It doesn't. Yeah. He's just a murderer. He just wanted to do some murdering.
Yes, like they're like, man, we need to have this sort of kill. It's awesome, but who do we kill?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's have him drive by and be like, what you doing? Nothing. Okay. Like, what more was he supposed to investigate?
How did he even know? Because, like,
yeah,
the fisherman at that point was hit by a car and, like, unconscious.
it's really stupid.
That is really stupid. Boy, that is dumb. You know what else is dumb? I made a huge mistake, and I apologize. It was Leonard from The Big Bang Theory. Howard's the other one that looks stupid.
Oh,
with the bowl cut.
Oh, he who played Moist in Dr. Horrible.
Maybe.
Yeah, like the scrawny dude, skinny.
It's been a long time since I've seen Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog.
You should revisit it.
I should.
It's an oldie but a goodie. Anyways.
No, yeah, he played.
Gotcha.
Like I knew his character. I just misnamed him. The name was Leonard in Big Bang Theory. I'm sorry, Howard. You are not a murderer or an innocent bystander or a murderee. You were. I was misidentifying you.
Well, I'm glad you figured that out. We don't want their lawyers coming after us.
No. Not at all.
But
yes,
yeah,
sorry, yeah, no, that is stupid that Mr. Leonard had to die.
Yeah, it's like the coolest kill in the film, but for the dumbest reason. There,
yeah, and it's also doesn't make like how do people again the suspension of disbelief thing? Like you're really gonna kill him there, drag him, all of his blood across the counter, get rid of his body by putting it in your boat because you find it later, and no one's gonna notice in the middle of the very busy fish yard. But whatever.
Yeah, it's stupid. I mean, like I said, it's a cool setting, and I'm sure that's the only reason why they set up the kill. But it's just
yeah. I think the other reason is to make you like. Put a little question mark on your head, like, oh, was it the meanie bobini boy, the mean rich boy, because he was just there interrogating him, and then he walked off, and then it's like, oh, did he go grab a coat and finish him off because he didn't want anyone to talk, you know? Mm-hmm. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
So I thought little elements like that were good for setting up like the whodunit aspect of the mystery, but yeah, the ultimate resolution was a little kind of confusing.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that sentiment there. I feel like the problem is like whenever it comes to a film like this, like a murder mystery there, they couldn't kill the main characters because they're the ones that are like being hunted, which is why it felt weird. This is one of my biggest things, and I'm just curious on like why. And like because the big thing is that multiple times the fisherman has specifically, as we've known, met up with both Helen and Barry.
Yeah.
There, where he could have easily killed them, but then didn't. And it's like, oh, he's just messing with us because he knows there's nothing we could do about it. But in all honesty, I didn't buy it, if that makes sense. Like Ghostface and Freddy Krueger screwing with people, I could totally buy given the characters they set up and everything else. And maybe it's because, you know, Ghostface and Freddy talk, and so they're able to like openly explain they want to play with their food, whereas the fisherman is kept silent there. But the lengths he goes, like hitting Barry with a car and then sneaking into Helen's house only to like mess up her hair.
Yeah, he's definitely like, yeah, the more I think about it, he's trying to like teach these kids a lesson or whatever and do all this dramatic stuff. Or yeah, he like goes through the bother of sneaking through her house in the middle of the night when they're all still awake though, and like then not doing anything until everybody's asleep, and then sneaking out, and all he does is write on her mirror and cut her hair. And it doesn't even seem to affect her hair at all.
No.
Somebody makes a comment of like, they may have really messed with your hair, haha, but like it's perfect, beautiful.
It looked gorgeous. Yeah, she's like, cut your hair. I'm like, it looks fine to me. I don't know what you're on about, dude. That cop was the worst cop ever.
Oh, that guy was stupid. Yeah, that was a dumb coincidence part in the movie too, where the cop is like, well, we gotta take the alley shortcut. And then tries through the alley, and then is like, oh, there's a nice man and a fisherman's like having trouble with his car. You stay here. I gotta go see if he needs help. And then of course he just like, it starts the first of a series of women screaming which causes victims to look behind them and then get stabbed.
Yeah.
To be distracted, be like, what is she screaming about? And then they get stabbed in the back.
God, it was so dumb. And then like the way, because like that cop, I mean, I know what they're doing. They're making the person unlikable to where you want to see them die. Cutting way ahead to the 4th of July holiday, which I mean, if I'm guessing as to why the fisherman doesn't kill them already, maybe he's waiting till July 4th to exact his revenge and he just wants to screw with it beforehand. That's the only plausible idea I could think of there. But anyhow, whenever it came to like the pageant, you know, Barry's up there and he gets attacked by the fisherman, and of course Helen starts screaming and freaking out while she's on stage, and everyone's like stopping her like, hey, what's going on? Woo, what's going on? And then the cop shows up and is like, hey, what's going on? It's like, someone's dying upstairs. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll check it out. And then he's waltzing upstairs with his flashlight there and looking around, and he's like, I don't see nothing. This isn't a time to be playing a prank. And it's like, it'd be one thing if you knew she did play pranks or whatever, but she doesn't.
Well, I think he says like, I think your boyfriend's playing a prank on you.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm glad you're vouching for the cop, because I sure as hell ain't.
No, he's still awful, because then the camera immediately pans to the part where blood is just dripping all over where he should have been walking and shining his flashlight. But
yeah, like, it's just, he's a bad cop.
Yeah, no.
Like, just a terrible cop. And then he's just like, hey, how about I take you home? Your parents are worried about you. Doing that. Legitimately, though, like, I just got this from him. Like, this dadgum emoji face has been going around, just going, ooh, crazy. Yeah, that's exactly the dadgum face I found. Yeah, I just imagined that. And then, this, so dumb, the alleyway thing, it's just like, road's blocked off. I'm going to take the alleyway.
Drive through the alley. And then stop and leave you locked in the back car while I go harass a stranger.
He's like, this is important. Won't take more than a minute. Excuse me, sir. Your car seems to be broken down. And it's like, that's him. And he's like, what?
What? Well, I guess I have to murder you for asking me that.
Yeah, and then he just guts him. Because, you know, I'm sure that cop knew what he did last summer. Did a bad job upholding the law.
Did a poor job. But I did kind of like the scene where she had to like kick out the back of the cop car window and like crawl out.
Oh yeah, with her heel and everything.
And she's running away, and like it's the one time it makes sense that she's like running in this stupid ass outfit, because she was like just doing her little crab coming queen or whatever thing, where she had to be on
crab coming queen.
To be on stage, and so it's like, yeah, she's like running in these heels through the town and screaming, and I was like, this is classic slasher stuff. Like that was cool. I did think, I mean, it was super dumb that the fisherman just like slowly walked up to her.
Yeah,
as she was catching. It didn't seem like a scary walk. It was just like he couldn't be bothered.
Like, yeah, it definitely lacked that Jason or Michael Myers strut.
Yeah, there was no like presence. It was just like, here, come here, I gotta kill you.
It just, that whole scene killed me. Like, whenever she's like banging on like the business window, being like, let me in, and the sister's like, what's going on? And like, she's screaming off the top of her lungs. Both the lead actresses are scream queens for sure, in a sense. They scream a ton
all the time.
But then her sister is like, you know, just gives a shrug, slowly walks over to the keys there, and she's like, what are you doing? And then she's like fumbling with the keys, opening it. And the part that kills me afterwards is like, after all this happens and stuff, she's like, we need to lock the doors or whatever. And she didn't lock the doors to all the place, just that one door.
Just the front door, not the back door. Yeah.
Yeah, and so whenever she's going around to lock the back door, you see that he's already gotten in.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was very stupid.
But it was so funny, because seeing her throat get slit or whatever, it was like a gusher amount of blood, just like, you know, they're not like a gratuitous amount of blood.
No.
There, which it just made it look so funny.
Yeah.
There. But I will say that whole scene does lead to one of the stupidest best setups ever, is whenever like they cut the power to the building or whatever, and the sister was seen putting these like little covers over the mannequins and the fisherman decides to cover himself.
He's got a dramatic flair that does like not line up with his character.
No.
But he just loves to do all this shit.
Like they're trying to like, it's like almost like they're like, I know this doesn't fit the killer, but this is be a cool idea. Because he just has him standing still, and then, Helen's walking around looking at everything, and then what do you know? One of them's the fisherman as it jumps out and like tackles her to the ground.
Yeah.
And then as they're fighting off, her grand plan is to go to the lift.
Oh, yeah.
That was the best scene in the entire movie in my eyes.
For the funny. Yeah.
With the worst reason why.
It was like a Looney Tunes bit where like he's like swiping at her legs and she's pulling herself up with this like old style pulley elevator, and she like finally is like and he just like walks over to the stairs and then walks up the
like
stairs.
It is like going up the stairs was quicker than the pulley system
by like a large margin, and then she finally pulls herself up and he's just like there like, hey, and she has to like throw herself out a window.
Like that whole pulley scene was the stupidest best part of the film. It
was a bit for sure.
That made the movie for me, that I'm like, all right, that's a good one. I like that a ton. It just is so stupid. And I think they even knew it was stupid, maybe. Or they are at least trying to show how he got up there. Because it's just a casual strut upstairs.
Right.
Whatever. Oh, man. But yeah, I had to talk about that. That was great. But whenever it comes to, like, a lot of the moments and stuff, like I said, they have like some cool like thematic stuff, like I said, showing Big Bang guy dead in the trunk with the crabs and everything. It was cool and everything. Stupid how quick the fisherman wants to clean it up.
Right.
Like, I know you're good at catching fish, but come on now.
Come on.
Doing that, but yeah, like following the crew with the story and solving, I just wasn't quite as invested in as other films that I feel like actively try to take steps to do it better.
I can see that. Yeah, I guess I was more invested in who was actually after them and killing them, because it was like, oh, who could it be, but it was most of the things they were throwing at the audience were just distractions from a mystery you couldn't really solve on your own.
Well, and that's the thing, because like we've already mentioned it, but the end of the film is hysterical, because whenever she thinks it's like Freddie Prinze Jr. that's the killer, because he's on the boat named Billy Blue, and she tries to get out and someone's conveniently locked the gate there, so then she goes the opposite way. And whenever Freddie Prinze Jr. is chasing after her, a fisherman, not that we know later is the fisherman, ends up like rope runging Freddie
clotheslining him.
Yes, that's what it was, clotheslining him. And then he's like, here, you get on the boat for safety.
No, she was like, I need to call 911. And he was like, quickly to the phone on the boat or whatever.
That's even better.
And then she runs off to go find the phone, and then he just unties the boat and pushes it off, and then hops on the boat with her. And she's looking around and seeing all these articles about her and her friends, and is like, oops.
Oh my gosh. And oh lordy, it was great seeing like photos of like them first hanging out, but then photos like just recently, because like they don't tell you if it's the next day or something. So like it shows pictures of them at the parade they were at, and I'm like, did he just develop these? Like, quick, I need these developed right now.
He probably has a black room in his
I could see
boat.
that. I could see that. It's a dank little boat. Only dark.
My photography hobby. I love killing and photos.
But like the thing that gets me is like as soon as she enters like the fisherman's lair, and then it's revealed the fisherman was the fisherman. Like you're expecting like a big reveal or anything like that,
monologue or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Got my hands on you.
Like the killer revealed like kind of monologue. It doesn't have to be in each film, but like what he does say, it just doesn't hold anything.
Right.
Like I didn't get like chills down my spine or anything, because like you use, for instance, like spoiler alert for Friday the 13th Part 1. I don't know why I need to say it, but I'm saying it. But whenever, like, Mrs. Voorhees is revealed, she has, like, a huge epic monologue whenever it comes to, like, her motivation and everything as a killer.
Right.
And we didn't see her the entire film. Same with the fisherman. We never saw him. I guess minus the beginning part, but that's neither here nor there. Because you don't see him the rest of the film unless he's fully disguised or whatever. But, like, whenever he does mention, like, you've only heard of him a couple of times whenever they've researched the articles there. And it's like, yeah, I guess this David Egan was dating this one girl, Susie, or whatever. Her father was a fisherman or something like that. Like, they mention it a couple of times, so it's not like a complete out of left field thing. But I guess for me, I just don't have that same connection because I don't know them.
Right.
Therefore, I don't feel any presence. And there isn't a lot to the fisherman character that brought it. Because, like I said, bring up Mrs. Voorhees. You didn't know anything about her, but, like, her presence, her character, her acting she brought was, like, made her a force to be reckoned with. Whereas the fisherman is just like, my sweet little Susie.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you now. Like, it just, I honestly couldn't even tell you what he said. Like, he did that coin flick, which is, like, his little sign that he's nearby, which, you know, I think it's good they tried their best to,
like, make, like, an icon.
Yes, make an icon. I just feel like they sort of failed a bit.
Yeah. And I'd also say, I don't remember what I was also about to say.
That's fair. This movie does that too, yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't even think he needs, like, a killer's monologue or anything if they really didn't want to go down that route. I think he needs literally, like, one exchange of dialogue with Julia, the girl that just got on her boat and realizes she's in a lot of trouble. You know what I mean? And they do have dialogue. It's just, like, not super meaningful. She's just like, "Are you in trouble?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm in a lot of trouble now," or whatever. Like, gulp, you know. But it could have just been like, you know, she, like, looks at him in the right light, and it, like, you know, does a little quick flashback scene of, like, him in the light of the water that they had, because it was cool lighting in the water or whatever. Maybe there's a light on the boat that does the same thing, and they just, like, flash the image, and she's like, and she like backs up and is like,
that would have been so much better.
You know, it's like an accident. We didn't mean to. And then all he could have said was whatever his line he already said, because she says something like, she was like, an accident and he didn't mean to, and she'd be like, then you should make sure that I'm dead next time or something. And then, you know, it just would have been just a little detail right there. And they try to do that with, like, she sees all the newspaper clippings or whatever and is like, oh, I get it. But it's just not that obvious to the audience.
No, it's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
They could have done that a lot better. And surprisingly, the climax of the film is pretty long. I was expecting it to be a lot shorter, her running around the boat. But let me tell you what, it is so funny seeing so many of the whoops or whoops, where am I gonna go now? Like, it's because, like, she tries to load up the flare gun and then it's just him driving the boat that manages to knock her back, and then she loses the flare. And he's just there grinning as he's steering to, I guess, a remote part to kill her or whatever. And then there's, like, a huge, like, chase scene where she's literally running back and forth from the same places on the boat there. But one of the things that, like, this is just silly, is whenever she decides to slip underneath the grate or whatever, and then they have him, like, trying to poke through the hook there.
He pokes the hook through and then tries to lift up the grate, and he's just like, it's like strength versus strength, instead of just, like, stepping on her hands or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It was just like, just like going through the motions of, like, I'm trying to get you.
Yeah, it's just so goofy. And then, you know, you have Freddie Prinze Jr. getting on a boat to chase after them, and then they have, like, a whole fight with, like, fishing equipment.
Yeah, he's, like, swinging the hook at him, and he's, like, backing up and throwing a few punches, and then he finds a hook of his own, and they're, like, hook fighting, but he's got, like, his hook on a pole. So... And then, of course, like, Julia screams, and then he turns around and gets knocked up in the face back into the water, and he grabs onto the fishing net and claws his way back on. I was a fan of, like, that they had this really extended chase tension scene and through the boat. I thought the boat was a neat, like, place to explore, but no, it was really hokey.
Yeah, I think that's my thing. I feel like for the climax, I feel like it's cool they were on the boat, because, again, it fits with, like, the fisherman aesthetic they're going for with the slasher there. It just, kind of was a little undercooked there.
Yeah.
A bit. And, it's like a long chase scene. It is funny, though, because I feel like they spent an extraordinary amount of time showing Julie in the ice room.
Yeah.
They're, like, digging through ice there.
She's trying to, like, put all the ice in the door so he couldn't get in, but as she's doing it, she uncovers the bodies of two of her friends that are in the ice.
Yeah. Which, both of their deaths, I mean, it was just literal just hooking and stabbing, even whenever they killed Helen's character, whenever she's like, oh, I'm almost to the parade, and then whoopsie doodle, he's behind the tire stack.
Yeah. And she tried to fight back, but then ultimately got stabbed.
Yeah.
It is definitely one of those things that the actual, like, deaths themselves are not that cool, but, like, the scenes that surround them were entertaining enough for me.
Yeah, well, that's good. Definitely glad you enjoyed that. I will say, whenever it comes to the way the fisherman is defeated is hysterical, because you have, like, Freddie Prinze Jr., after he successfully gets on the boat and he has Julie cornered, he throws, like, that little, like, hook pulley there, hits him in the head, and then he gets snagged upwards, like his hook, I think, or something.
Yeah, he's about to kill Julie, and he has his, like, hand up in the air to get him, but it gets caught on a rope, and Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character, because he's been working as a fisherman this whole time, or whatever, is like, oh shit, and hits the pulley that the rope was connected to, and it, like, yanks him up into the sails or whatever, and, like, cuts his arm off.
And then he just flies into the ocean. It's just so cheesy. And then it's like, whenever they're at the crime scene or whatever, it shows, like, the hand still on the hook, the cleaved off hand. It's goofy, but at the same point, I feel like also it's one of the other things that I did enjoy, because it does harken back to, like, the scary stories.
Yeah, that they were telling in the beginning of the man with no hand,
yes.
with a hook for a hand.
But yeah, I feel like, overall, not the worst ending, just a little underbaked, I think is the best way I can describe it. I do how they have the cheeky line of, do you know why this man would want to kill you? And they're like, nope.
No.
Looks
at camera.
Yeah, wink. And I love how they had that quick exposition towards the end of, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I did tell you about the Billy Blue. I was just trying to figure it out because I wanted to get back with you.
Yeah, that was a little dumb. Of, like,
a little, little tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
Definitely felt like it's just kind of serving as a red herring. But yeah, I mean, I feel like with this film overall, it just kind of, like, by the point you got to the resolution, it wasn't a satisfying resolution there, in my opinion anyhow. Plus, I think, like, me not liking a lot of the survivors, and it's kind of like Devil's Rejects, except definitely not as bad. They are not, let me mind, the survivors are nowhere near as bad as the Devil's Rejects, mind you. But being with, like, people that you just don't like, or whatever, just kind of sucks. And, like, kind of seeing, like, Barry get a lot of screen time, surprisingly, since Freddie Prinze Jr. is, like, absent for half the film, since he serves as a red herring. It's just like, I don't like this dude.
Yeah, and I can't.
They made him too unlikable.
Yeah, they definitely were trying to make you not like him, so you wonder if he's a killer or not. But then he gets killed, and that resolves that.
I guess in my mind, I never once thought he was the killer.
Right, it definitely. I didn't really ever believe it was, but it was like, the movie was trying to keep it as an option. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I could totally see that there. But yeah, I mean, even looking at the rest of the film, it's kind of like, sort of thing. I can't really think of anything else distinct to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know, because they do stuff in the film and they have, like, moments, but they have, like, a lot of, like, stupid classic horror tropes, like whenever Barry's initially getting chased down by the car, he doesn't try to, they show he tries to swerve to the sides, but conveniently there's, like, a barricade, but whenever you zoom out, you can clearly see there's an open section he could have just darted towards,
instead of just running down the middle of the road away from a car.
Yeah, overall it was just kind of like, okay. Like I said, I really don't hate this film or anything, but at the same point, I'm not, like, one of those, it's not like where I'm like, oh man, I needed to show everybody this film and everything. I think it's just like one of those, like, if you want to watch a movie where you don't care too much about what's going on, as bad as it sounds.
Yeah, no, it is a little bit of a mindless, fun
Yeah.
kind of a movie. It's definitely a put on in the background kind of movie if you're looking for something like that. But
Yeah. Aside from that, anything else you want to talk about with this film, or any other bullet points, or any thoughts, critiques, memories?
I really just hope in the next film they explore how Freddy started roving around with the mystery machine and all that gang.
I know it's a prelude to the Scooby-Doo
Yeah.
saga.
It was like, we solved this mystery, so now I'm gonna solve some other mysteries. It was the fisherman the whole time.
All right. Well, I don't think we'll get that, even though there, I think, are 2 more sequels
I know
to
there's
the
at least
series.
one more. I know there's one that's called, like, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer,
That's
right?
the name of the
it?
second one, yeah. And then the third one is, I'll Always Know What You Did Last
Not
Summer.
really running out of juice.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and tease the next film then,
Okay.
since I feel like we've wrapped this one up
Yeah.
fairly neatly. So this next film is going to be almost 30 years from whenever I Know What You Did Last Summer released.
Okay.
And it is done by an acclaimed director. In fact, it's probably the number 1 film. Well, I'd probably say number 1 or number 2 film he is known for making.
Interesting.
It was in black and white. Ended up being public domain because he failed to issue the copyright in time, which led to its popularity. And the director's name is George A. Romero.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not familiar with George A. Romero's works.
Oh, well then, this is a surprise to me as well. Well, if there's one thing we do know about him, we have reviewed a remake of a film he did previously, and it has to do with zombies.
Oh. Did he do Night of the Walking Dead?
You were super close. Not walking, but instead
The Living Dead.
yes.
That was the name of it.
Yep, you're good. You're good. It's like one of those things that I was like, "Oh,
All
Whoa.
these dead things.
Zombies, dead people, it's Greek to me. You know what I'm saying, baby?"
Hey, what's the difference?
First you have zombies running around, then you got dead people. I don't know what you want me to do about it. I'm just now I'm on like stupid juice right now, where I'm like, so my kid's telling me about this living dead going around. Fucking internet.
Are they living? Are they dead? It's all confusing to me.
Dead's dead. You know what I mean? They ain't going to spring back.
Trust me.
Okay, that
That's
was
great.
my god awful Tony Soprano impersonation. So thank you all so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see y'all again next time when we're popping the scary with Night of the Living Dead. You just tell me they eat babies like gabagool.
Goblins and gabagools.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're popping the scary.